Hey guys, Dotarian here. Let's have a look at the new Diablo patch notes coming out on August 8th. So this particular patch, it looks like it's a good one. This one's going to focus a lot on buffing sorcerers and barbarians. So here they've included a rundown of what they're going to do. Sorcerers improve late game survivability, mostly through Paragon board improvements. Adjust some of the class mechanics to move away from the Kiss Curse effects. This is where you gain some power but then lose power somewhere else. They're just going to even it out across the board and just buff it. Next, with barbarians, they're going to speed up the flow of combat in the early game by increasing the fury generation on some basic skills, as well as improve the power of some of the unique items that there are. And also the other class as well, Druid, Necromancer, and Rogue, they're getting like small little buffs as well, just across some skills that don't really get used. So let's have a look at the main changes. Now, in terms of this Barbarian, I don't really play Barbarian, but I will include a link to this down in the description below. But you can see here, Bash, Flay, Lunging Strike. These are all Fury generators, which have been increased in terms of how much Fury they generated. And then some of the core skills have been buffed as well. There's been slight increases to some passives in terms of damage increases. This one here, Walking Arsenal, I do know that Walking Arsenal is the key passive, and so that's been increased from 6 to 8 seconds. This will be really good because I think the Walking Arsenal one made you change weapons. So Walking Arsenal reads, dealing direct damage with different types of weapons, allow you to gain increased bonuses. The fact that it's increased from 6 to 8 seconds means that it's more forgiving when you change weapons, so I think that's a really good change. And probably pushing for these different types of builds is a really good change that I think Blizzard is implementing. A bunch of legendary power increases in buffs here. Then we've got uniques, some increases to different uniques that Barbarian has. I think these are more like ones that Barbarians weren't really using as often, so hopefully it'll be a bit more attractive in terms of these uses. Let's look at the 3 classes that I do play right now. So I played Rogue and Sorcerer in Season 0, and then now I'm playing Druid in Season 1. So with Rogue, you can see there's not many changes here. Invigorating Strike, Forceful Arrow, those are like 2 basic skills that weren't being used as much. I think this is a good change. Primary Forceful Arrow will pierce enemies now, so that's a really good change for Forceful Arrow to be a bit more attractive in terms of using it in, say, the rapid fire build. Invigorating Strike, I don't really see anyone using this, but again, the buff itself is not too bad. Then we've got the 2 traps, Caltrops and Poison Trap being buffed here. And then Supreme Rain of Arrows, which is the ultimate. Waves, the first wave knocks down enemies for 3 seconds. So this actually makes more sense, because I think what would happen is the second wave of Forceful Arrow, of the Rain of Arrows, would knock enemies down, which doesn't make sense because you've like done your damage and everyone's run away. This way, I think you knock the first wave down for the second wave to apply the damage, which makes more sense. Victimized, they've kind of increased the lucky hit chance here. They've also increased the damage reduction on the damage of effects passive, and they've slightly buffed the siphoning strikes. This passive was already nerfed by making it a lucky hit chance, so this 10% increase from 75 to 85 is basically not noticeable because of the fact that this skill is now a lucky hit chance anyway. And then we've got some other buffs here. Wind Force, like no one was really using this anyway, but the fact that it's a vulnerable damage bow now makes it a little bit more attractive in terms of people using it. And Word of Hakan, the fact that it's been changed from ultimate damage to cooldown reduction is a game changer, because now the Word of Hakan amulet, which buffs your Rain of Arrows, will now be usable because rogues wanted cooldown reduction on their gear. Next, we've got the Druid changes. Again, with Druid, kind of in line with Barbarian, we're also seeing the basic skills get buffed in terms of the spirit generation. So Earth Spike, Claw, Storm Strike, Wind Shear, Maul. These are the 5 basic skills, and you can see there's been slight increases to how much spirit generation there is. Now, notice the numbers seem quite small, like 1. This is actually like a 10% increase in terms of the spirit generation. So this is actually not as bad as you think it is. If you hit, say for example, the Maul, if you hit Maul like a couple of times, you can see that this percentage increase is actually quite a lot in terms of it. But again, we'll have to see how it works. A lot of Druid builds tend to just use Storm Strike or Storm skills instead anyway. So we'll have to see how it goes. Then we've got the companions. Wolf has been buffed a lot. You can see the different changes to Wolf. So Wolf's passive damage is increased. Active damage also increased. Then you've got the passives here. Also, again, increases to the amount of attack speed and fortify. You got the Ravens, which is another companion, also been buffed as well. And then finally, Rabies. There's a legendary power where the wolves can apply Rabies. This has also been buffed as well. So I think companions will be a little bit more viable after this particular patch. This one here, Aspect of Metamorphic Stone, this made your Boulder skill a castable skill. So now it's been changed in terms of its damage reduction and buffed as well. So I think this is also another good change to kind of make Boulder maybe a more attractive option. And then we've got Aspect of the Alpha, which again is a legendary power that pairs with your companions. So this will make your wolves deal this much more damage, but now it's been increased to 115. So again, that's like a 15% increase in terms of the wolves damage. That's another good change. Mangled Aspect. This aspect was the one where if you're a werebear and you get hit, you have a chance to generate resources. So spirit generation. This is another good change as well, because I think Mangled Aspect was basically like a useless legendary aspect. Now it's actually usable, because as a werebear, you want to be in the thick of things and tanking things. This could possibly replace Umbral because of how many times you might get hit. But in terms of late game, I think it's not as attractive because, again, your goal in the late game is not to tank damage, but rather to deal as much damage as you can. So I think Umbral will still be slightly better than this. If anything, I think they maybe should have buffed this, because Umbral applies the resource generation to crowd control enemies, so essentially you can do it all the time, whereas the Mangled Aspect only applies when you actually get hit. So this is more conditional than the Umbral aspect, which actually would just make Umbral better than this particular aspect, but that's the way it is. Now we have the big changes to Sorcerer. So you can see here the Sorcerer notes are much longer than the Druid and Rogue. With Sorcerer, each of the basic skills... Sorry, not each of the basic skills. Firebolt has increased mana regen when hitting enemies. They've also improved a lot with Fireball and Lightning in terms of Sorcerer. And you'll see through the patch notes that they've really increased the damage reduction that sorcerers will be able to take as well. They haven't really made any changes to the Frost build. So I think this will make Fire and Lightning more viable. But let's have a look through these changes. So Enhanced Fireball, casting Fireball increases its radius by 50%. Destructive Fireball, the Fireball's critical strike damage is increased by 20%. And then this is increased to 30% if it hits at least 3 enemies. Again, trying to buff Fireball is another good change. Then we've got Chain Lightning. Each time it bounces, it deals 5% more damage for its duration. And you'll notice down here at the bottom, there's also going to be a power which makes it bounce, more often. So that's going to be really good. Destructive Chain Lightning, chance to form crackling energy increased from 25% to 30%. No one's really using crackling energy. I think crackling energy is good for Sorcerer, but you won't be using it for the damage. You'll mainly be using it for the utility. I really wanted to make crackling energy in terms of damage work, but the crackling energy, you really have to focus a lot on your crackling energy in order to make it work. Mainly, I think people were using the crackling energy to get the mana regen. Then we've got here the 3 key passives. We've got Veer's Mastery, Esu's Ferocity, and Combustion. These ones were more focused on close combat and also lightning. So now we've got the lightning and combustion, which is obviously a fire perk, been buffed. You can see here, combustion, your burning effects deal 20% increased damage, plus an additional 2% increased damage per unique source of burning that you've applied to each enemy. So if you've got, say, 3 different sources of burning, you have an extra 6% as well. So this is a lot of increased burning damage. So that'll be good to see. And then finally, in the Paragon section, we've got Searing Heat Legendary Node. Casting Fireball or Meteor increases your crit chance by 5% up to 15%. And then we've got Crackling Energy's damage has been increased with this particular legendary node. Territorial Rare Glyph has been increased damage reduction. Warding Rare Glyph has increased damage reduction. That's quite a huge damage reduction effect from 13 to 25. And then we've got Keeper of the Flames Rare Node. This is damage reduction from burning, and we've increased it from 4 to 5%. And then the bonus damage reduction has been increased from 4 to 5% as well. So that's a really good change. Smoldering Embers is again damage reduction from burning increased from 4 to 5%, and bonus damage reduction increased from 4 to 5% as well. And then Guarded, you got damage reduction from Vulnerable, increased from 4 to 5%, as well as the bonus from Vulnerable increased from 4 to 5%. So some really good changes across the board to increase the Sorcerer's damage reduction. And then finally, each of the legendary aspects, you got heaps of legendary aspect changes. We got the Serpentine aspect, which originally was you summon a Hydra, but then it decreased the duration of your Hydra. Now it increases the duration, which is really good. Aspect of Conflagration. So you can see the burning damage increased. Burning damage increased here. Aspect of 3 Curses increases the crit strike damage of Meteor and Fireball by 20% to 40%, double if against healthy enemies. So with Burning and Meteor, Burning builds tend to do a lot more damage to healthy enemies and immobilized enemies, which is what it's going to focus on. That's what this particular aspect is going to focus on, I guess, if it's healthy. Then we've got increases to Ball Lightning effect and deals 15 to 25% increased damage, which is really good because you used to decrease your damage before. So that's now good to really see that it's increasing it. Flamewalker's aspect, bonus move speed duration increase from 4 to 6 seconds. This is after you use your Flame Shield. Now you're going to move faster. That's another good quality of life change that they have. Aspect of Unbroken Tether, additional Chain Lightning bounces increase from 2 to 4. That's a really good change for Chain Lightning. Now you're going to be bouncing a lot more Chain Lightnings. And then Recharging Aspect, which is each time the Chain Lightning bounces, you gain 1.5 to 3 mana. This is a nice change from what it used to be, which is that it would only give you mana if it bounced off you. So it would only be good in like a single target situation. Now it's good across the board. Then we've got Charger Aspect, bonus move speed duration increase from 4 to 8 seconds. Bounding Conduit, we've got a small damage increase there. This one here increases the Veer's Mastery key passive damage reduction by 6 to 9% for each close enemy, up to 27%. This is a nice damage reduction change for the Veer's Mastery key passive. Veer's Mastery key passive here, you can see, has increased damage as well. So they're really trying to buff up Veer's Mastery. So Veer's Mastery granted close enemies to take more damage from shock skills and 20% less damage to you. Crit strike bonuses increase the effect by 25% for 3 seconds. Now that is much stronger with these changes. Then we've got Aspect of Frozen Orbit. This is a Frozen Orb focused aspect. So you got the damage increased by 10%, which is a really nice change. Storm Swell aspect, Snow Veiled aspect. Okay, Incendiary aspect. Lucky hit damage from your pyromancy skills has up to 12 to 17% chance to restore mana. Okay, so I think this chance used to be much lower before. Snow Guards aspect, Blizzard, and for 3 seconds while leaving it, you get... Okay, so this is a really good buff to like this particular aspect and Blizzard in general. And then finally, we've got the mana regen increase from 20 to 30% to 40 to 50%. So there's some good mana regen here for this particular aspect. And then Gloves of the Illuminator. This is like a fireball focused unique, which made your fireballs bounce, but you did like significantly less damage, 65% less damage. So this was actually a really bad item. Now it's been decreased a little bit. I think the main reason why the damage penalty exists is because the fireball can bounce and damage multiple times. But even then, I think with this change, I'm not sure if people will still use this. And they've changed the stun aspect, damage to stunned, and replaced it to damage to lucky hit, change to restore resource. So I'm not sure how good this will be. Moving on down to Necromancer. Then we've got Necromancer buffs across the board as well. Again, less changes to Necromancer than a lot of the other classes. But the big one here is this, which is minions. The following attacks now deal reduced damage to Druid companions and Necromancer minions, which is the Balrog when they did the Fire Breath. So like it's like a demon that charges up a Fire Breath and then unleashes the Fire Breath. This would actually do devastating damage to your minions. And then finally you've got like Fire Enchant, which is like the explosions, fire explosions, and the electrified obelisks where they put down these pillars and it would shock between the two pillars. And then you've got the shock lance. So all of these aspects did really big damage to your minions. Now they do less damage, so your minions will be surviving longer. I think these were the main aspects that were killing a lot of the minions off, so that it's good that these have been changed. Other big changes, they're increasing the monster density in Nightmare Dungeons and in Helltides, and then separately, bosses will have more health depending on the level. So if your boss in the Nightmare Dungeon is above 100, if say for example if you're doing a Nightmare 100, the boss will have 150% increased health, whereas if you're doing Nightmare Dungeon with monsters at level 80, then the increased health would only be 50%. So this is only for bosses. You can still do Nightmare Dungeons without bosses, and this won't have that same problem. But on top of that, monster density will increase, which is good because that means you can get more XP from doing dungeons. Then we've got changes to bosses again in terms of level 35 and higher boss monsters now have a 100% chance to drop a legendary, with treasure goblins also having an increased legendary drop rate, and also Legion events also guaranteeing a legendary drop rate, as well as being more rewarding in terms of how much, I guess, XP or loot that they give you. And then another good change here is the cost of refunding skills and Paragon points have been reduced. The reduction starts small at lower levels and hits a maximum of 40% at 100. So for example, level 80, you'll have a 30% cheaper cost reduction. We've increased the stack limit for elixirs from 20 to 99. Okay, that's another good change. And then finally, an additional stash tab that you can buy with gold. They've also changed back the leave dungeon from 5 seconds back down to 3 seconds. And then finally, these particular affixes in Nightmare Dungeons won't exist anymore. You've got Resource Burn that won't exist, Backstabbers, and Empowered Elites Cold Enchanted. These particular affixes were notorious for being very punishing, especially resource burn. You would sometimes have like no resource, and so you can't cast any skills, and then you would just die, or you'd have to run away and come back and try to fight them. These were really, really punishing affixes, so it's good that it's been removed. Then we've got temerity increased. The all stats affix replaced with max life, and barrier is now based on max life instead of your current life. Oh, sorry, base life, I mean. And then it also properly accounts for conditions for checking the player having a barrier. Okay, and then down here we've got some bug fixes. Okay, so they've got one here. One bug fix that they've mentioned here is fixed an issue where players could repeatedly fight Vashan during the final seasonal quest by resetting the dungeon when he respawns. So what this was is you can constantly get Wrathful Hearts by fighting Vashan because he drops a guaranteed Wrathful Heart. The black hearts that are really desired. And so what you could do is you could fight him, kill him, and then leave the dungeon and reset it, and then you can just keep fighting him again. So this has been changed, and it's been fixed. Fixed an issue where the Invoker of Vashan recipe could be lost. For any player that lost the recipe, it can be acquired from any malignant kill after the seasonal quest line has been completed. Okay, so those are the main highlights of the upcoming patch. Let me know what you guys think about this particular patch in the comments down below. As always, have an awesome day, and bye for now.